Well, then I think we're live. So hello, everyone. Welcome to this investor webinar for Natural Paint Co. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Ben Brown from Snowball Effect. I've been leading the raise for Natural Paint Co. so far, and I'm sure most of you will have received some email comms from me over the course of the raise. So I'm here to, facilitate and guide the session today. I'm joined by video by James and Grace from Natural Paint Co. And they'll be here to, take us through a short presentation on the business and the strategy. And they'll also be here primarily to answer questions and respond to comments and feedback from our attendees. So the format for the session is pretty straightforward. I'll hand over to James and Grace shortly. They've got a short presentation of about 10 to 15 minutes, nice and punchy, and then we'll roll into some Q&A for the majority of the webinar. We've had a few questions that have been submitted in advance, so when we kick into the Q&A, I'll touch on those ones first and get some conversation going. Ideally, we'd like it to remain relatively informal, and my role really is to get into the detail. So I might jump in on occasion and ask some follow-up questions as needed. If you don't get a chance to answer or to have your question answered today, we will look to address it after the session and post those answers out as necessary. Otherwise, there is a Q&A section on the off page. This webinar is also being recorded, so if you do need to jump off or you'd like to come back and revisit it, we'll make it available to anybody via the off page as well. So look, I think that's about all the housekeeping side of things. We'll get underway now, and I'll hand over to James and Grace to take us through their presentation.
Cool. Thanks,
awesome.
Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. And welcome everybody to the webinar. We're looking forward to getting stuck in and answering some questions and just helping give everybody a bit more information, and really appreciate everybody's time. I know everybody leads busy lives, so taking some time aside to have a chat with us is awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. We'll get into the presentation. So just get that set up. Cool. Can we see that? Awesome. Okay. So, great place to start is our mission, which is Natural Paint Co. is created with an uncompromising promise to make the world's best paint that is healthier for our people and our planet. And our journey started officially back in 2015. Grace was a registered nurse working in the emergency department here in Christchurch, and I had fallen into the paint industry as a bit of an interim job after leaving university. And we were making changes in our own life to live, to be more conscious consumers, to be more sustainable with our practices, and live healthier lives in general. And being in the paint industry was a real eye-opener to seeing an industry which really hadn't changed its practices for 40, 50 years and was still very reliant on petrochemicals and toxic ingredients and unsustainable practices, from the sourcing of raw materials to the raw materials that are used and the chemicals that are used to the end of life cycle of the paint. There's a lot of waste throughout it, and we really saw an opportunity to be able to do something better. And Grace, comes from a real passion for health and keeping people well. So it was a really nice sort of collection of our own values aligning with, hey, there could be an opportunity here in the market. And we could see other markets, cosmetics, food, all moving towards more sustainable, healthier products, but the paint industry was quite stagnant. And so we looked to an opportunity to do something better. And we started by originally importing some products from Germany they're the world leaders in some regards in the sort of natural paint space, and natural paints have been commonplace since the 90s. So it was a great place to start. But what we soon quickly realized was the quality of the products that we were importing was not up to what was required for New Zealand standards. They were very chalky and matte, hard to clean, and didn't have the chemistry that we felt was needed to be able to create a really high quality product. And we knew going into it that if we wanted to be successful in the market, we would need to be able to create a product which would meet our 3 pillars that we started the business with, which was health, sustainability, and quality. And if we were going to be successful, we had to align on all of these. Painting is a big outlay for a lot of people, and it's something you don't want to be doing every year. It's something that people might do once every 7 to 10 years, and so they do expect a product which is going to stand up to life, and is going to be as good as or better than like what's available on the market. So that was really big for us. And what sort of led some of the decisions around creating a healthier product, what was really backed by information that was coming out and research that was coming out from the EPA, which was talking about indoor air quality, and how our indoor air is up to 2 to 5 times more polluted than outside, even in the most polluted cities. And the majority of what's causing that is the materials we're choosing to put in our homes, releasing chemicals into our indoor environment, and paints are a huge contributor to this. So when a room is newly painted, it'll be up to 1,000 times more polluted, and there'll be a large release of chemicals during the painting process, and then it does slowly drop off over time, but paints will keep leaching chemicals for up to 10 years. And when you do paint a room, you've got chemicals off-gassing, which then soak into things like carpet and furnishings and curtains, and then again slowly releases over time as well. And studies are showing that there's a range of health effects from minor, such as sort of asthma and allergies, headaches, nausea, dizziness, right up to more severe effects, which affecting reproductive toxicity, and also cancer as well. So we really felt that this issue wasn't being addressed in the industry and was just sort of being overlooked, and we wanted to do something better. So that brings us on to our differences, which Grace is going to tell us a little bit about.
Oh no, you can keep going. You're on a good roll.
Okay. So where our big points of difference is that we are completely free of harmful chemicals. So we use no ingredients in our products which have known studied health effect on humans or animals during or after painting. And we disclose all of those ingredients on our labels and in our data sheets, which no other paint company in New Zealand currently does. And we really feel like that's a real pivot point for us, to show or to have that transparency, which is lacking in the industry. The same way you would read food packaging to understand what calories and sugar and fat you might be ingesting. We're able to be completely transparent with what ingredients are going into people's homes and what they could be subject to and absorbing as well. So that was a big one for us, and we felt the best way to do that would be to be using natural ingredients and renewable resources. And nature has amazing raw materials at our disposal, which are often overlooked in favor of cheap synthetics and chemicals. And when we set out on the journey to create our products, we felt that there was a real opening here to be able to utilize what's found in nature. And with that journey, when we realized that importing products from Germany wasn't going to work, we found some of New Zealand's top paint chemists who had spent 40 years in the industry developing products for the big paint companies, and they were really excited to make a change and look to create products which would meet our criteria in health, sustainability, and quality for the New Zealand market. And that's what we were able to do. So with the expertise as well as what is available, we were able to create products that met those three. And that takes us onto the durable and washable. So our products are as good as or better than the chemical equivalents in the market. They're fully washable, so that's a big value proposition for clients is that they want to be able to, if they have children who are going to mark the walls or knock it, they want to be able to know that it's going to withstand life and everything you can throw at it. So the products are really easy to clean, and they last a long time. We have a 25-year interior guarantee, which is the largest guarantee in New Zealand, and that's backed by our science team as well. Alongside that, we're also carbon neutral as a company, and our products are made here in New Zealand. And we have some cool initiatives as well where we're saving a square metre of rainforest for every square metre that people paint, and we do that through a rainforest trust. And so far, we've saved
over 3 million square metres.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So we really feel like that's valued. We're with carbon neutral, we're offsetting in New Zealand and Australia by planting trees, but we're also saving rainforest as well, which is exclusive of the carbon neutral status, because we see how important it is to sustainability worldwide. Cool. So our product range, we have everything covered for interior and exterior, and we do paints and oils as well. So we're a full house system of coatings essentially. So we've got all the primers you would need. We've got top coats, undercoats, enamels for bathrooms and high service areas. Then we've got paints for exterior, and we also have a range of oils and stains, whether you're doing a deck or cedar, weatherboards or a renew floor. We've got everything there, and all of our products meet the same ethos of our company in terms of the health, sustainability, and quality. So talking about the history. So we started in 2015, but we started the company in 2015, but we actually started product development a little bit before that. So it's been about a 7-year journey in terms of creating products in New Zealand and really refining them to be the quality that they are today. We've talked about that, about importing products that didn't meet quality expectations, and then linking up with a really good manufacturer here and good chemistry team that were able to harness the expertise and their infrastructure to be able to create products which allowed us to be able to compete in the market against some pretty big, well-established companies. And then 2017-18, we really started developing our strategy and understanding our products and our clientele really well. And we felt that an e-commerce way of distribution would be the way that we wanted to work with Natural Paint Co. And then especially we were sort of the only ones in the market doing it. I think we had the first e-commerce store in New Zealand for paint. But what we quickly found was that we were able to be really successful in that space because we had little competition and we could get our brand in front of people in a really cost-effective way. And we could also address a lot of the other concerns that people have when they're buying paint around colour. We only have 100 colours, which really reduces paradox of choice and makes it a lot easier for people to be able to choose colour. And we have focused heavily on creating an e-commerce experience which addresses people's pain points and helps get them the right information and the right products, because it can be quite overwhelming. And they can do it from the comfort of their home in their pajamas if they want. And they get products delivered to them within 2 working days, and lead gen is within 1 working day. So colour charts and test pots and things like that. And alongside that, we knew we needed to, if we're going to be successful in the digital space, we needed to come up with a really strong strategy of marketing and partner with a good company which would be able to really grow our company in the digital space. And since using them, we've even over the last year, we've doubled our e-commerce revenue, and our conversion rate has increased over 77% year on year. And then around that time as well, we started branching into the trade space. So originally, our main demographic was targeting the end consumer, whether it's a DIYer or somebody building a house who would then ask to use our products. But once we felt we had really good products that we knew that the quality was as good as what you'd expect on the market. They're very DIY friendly. Anybody can use them. We started branching into the trade space as well. And that was a big one for us, ensuring that we had a really solid foundation of products and a brand that was starting to gain traction and become trusted and known, to be able to be successful in that space. In 2019-20, we expanded the product range to include exterior paints and oils as well. And that's probably, the oil side of things would be close to 50% of our revenue. So we really are both. And we also brought on Klaus, who's got his picture there, to champion our trade sales, so to really grow that market a lot further. And then would have been during lockdown. Hey, we made the decision to upgrade our e-commerce site.
Sorry, guys, excuse me.
Just hang up, Brexy.
It might be, James. It might be a good time, perhaps for me to just ask a question. I know we've got a few people who've had this question, so I might just raise it now because it's relevant to what you're discussing.
Yeah.
So the focus on e-commerce is obviously quite unique in this market, and it seems to me that there has been a kind of intentional focus not to get into a retail distribution channel at this stage. Perhaps you could talk to your thinking behind that. Just provide a bit more context for people around why that decision's been made at this stage.
Yeah, sure. Well, the first part of going into the industry is that we knew we would always be, we coined it the inside out model, where it would be us getting known by the end consumer, and then that gaining traction and influencing the trade. And so being able to service the market in the most cost-effective way, was that going into retail was going to be a challenge there. There were multiple challenges. The first one was having an unknown brand. And to be able to get into that space, you've got to kick somebody else out who is already established. And the cost of setting up was very expensive and also risky. And also we are very focused on being close to our customers. So we're very customer focused and customer centric, and we like to be able to really deliver from the moment they visit the website to when they're putting the paint on the wall, that whole journey. We want to deliver the delight factor the whole time. And so we felt that the e-commerce space allowed us to be able to maintain the standard that we needed with our brand, and ensure that we could get the right products into the right customers' hands. And also we understand our clients so well because of that, because we have so many touch points with them.
And I guess, Grace, you're kind of coming at this from more of the healthcare angle, given your background. And there are a couple of questions just on the session now around the role of education. So how much education do you need to do when you're engaging with customers around the benefits of the product, but also some of the potential harms of some of the more mainstream products? And I guess when you think about where you're going to next, how important is that education piece going to be to I guess fueling your growth?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think we're in quite a different position now than we were when we first started Natural Paint Co. The education piece was massive because we were revolutionary in this space. We were disrupting the paint industry as a whole and coming in with a complete new angle of the offering non-toxic products, which was really new, and it was very new in a lot of markets. But now that so many markets are going into the natural space, everyone is wanting to reduce their toxins. There is no good reason that chemicals need to be in products, and we're proving that in lots of industries, and we've proved that here with Natural Paint Co. that we're not compromising quality. The education is less, and with our new e-commerce platform that we've released late December, all of the education that clients need to know is there. As James said earlier in the presentation, we're really transparent with our ingredients, disclosing every single ingredient in our products. You can see that on our site. You can see what we include. You can see what we don't include. You can read up on like the effects of these chemicals. So that's all there. The education on our sustainability differences and what we offer, and the journey of our ingredients and where they come from and why we're choosing them over other ingredients. So continually, as we continue to grow, we really are working on this education piece and threading it through every element of our company, really. And when customers come to us and they're asking questions about the products, it's more around technical knowledge, really, what they need to do, how they need to apply it, as opposed to why they should choose Natural Paint Co over an alternative, because we are continually improving why Natural Paint Co is the best choice.
Yeah, I'd like to second that. Sorry, Ben, I just want to add something there.
Sure.
Grace touched on it, but definitely the education piece is they're requiring less and less convincing or a lot of information there, because of other industries that are changing, and there is a lot of research coming out currently, and it's going to keep growing around indoor air quality and healthier homes, and the toxins that we just are subject to every day, and it's something that hasn't really been talked about up until recently. So as that continues, our products are a natural fit.
And I think,
on that,
I think just building on that, my follow-up question would be, if the market is moving and if the consumer demands are changing and shifting in a direction that is favourable towards a natural product, then what's to stop some of the mainstream producers of paint products from sort of getting into this market and capturing some of your share? I know this is a question that's come up from a few people on the webinar, so it would be useful just to hear your thoughts on competition and what some of the challenges or opportunities might be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we see a lot of opportunity there. So, I mean, the first part is that our products are unique, and we do have IP protection around that. And it has been 7 years of product development. And the great thing about being a e-commerce company and still relatively small is that we can pivot very easily. And so we're constantly working on product development, and as new technology comes out, being able to improve there. The larger incumbents in the industry are very slow to innovate, and so even if when they clue on to what we're doing, and if they did want to replicate what we were doing, it would be a slow process for them to be able to launch something in the market. We understand that a lot of the companies can take about 7 years from concept to being able to release it, because they have such large scale. They have to do a lot of testing on it. We've been doing that for the last 7 years already. The other thing is that if a company was, say, Resina or Dulux, were to change their products to the same as ours, there is a huge brand reputation issue that they have to address, where they are then acknowledging that something is wrong with the current offering and changing to have something the same as us, which would be a challenging one for them to do under their current brand. But also it increases the market size and the awareness massively for healthier products. So where the market, the share of the market might be, so big now, you would have almost, 100% of the market, if it moved that way, wanting to buy natural paints. And the great thing is that in the e-commerce space, we have very strong SEO and very strong brand recognition in that space, because paint companies haven't, traditionally been there. So it would raise a lot of awareness. You'd have a lot of people looking for natural paints. I feel like there could be a lot of benefit to our company to have some of that healthy competition.
Okay. That's I think that's a useful point for us to sort of segue back to thinking about your growth plan. I know you've got another couple of slides in your presentation that just touch on what your future plans are. So perhaps we can jump back into that, and there might be some additional questions that come up through that part of the conversation.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah. So we'll just quickly touch on this, but in terms of operational capacity, one thing that really isn't a bottleneck for a company is the ability to be able to scale manufacturing. We are in partnership with our manufacturer, and we have scope to be able to significantly increase what we're doing without much investment at all in terms of machinery. And so, yeah, that's something that we are really excited about being able to scale the company, is that we have a lot of scope there. And we currently manufacture up north, and we distribute from our HQ in Christchurch. And we have very strict quality control measures in place at both ends. And we also have our IP secured, and it's exclusively ours, which we touched on earlier. Cool. So, yeah, a little bit about our target market. We probably don't need to go into too much detail on this, but our current split at the moment is sort of 80% retail, 20% trade. And ultimately, our two markets are, the end consumer is the same. And, we do sell a lot to, a sort of main demographic would be female, school-aged children, sort of 35 to 55, usually a homeowner. And usually they have, they care about health and sustainability, maybe by, eco products and things like that. But we are finding that this is changing as well. It's becoming more diverse. And, you've even got old school painters who 5 years ago wouldn't have given us the time of day, who are really keen to make a change as well for their own health and also for their clients. I'll touch on the market opportunity as well. So, as most people can probably guess, the coatings industry is pretty big internationally. It's worth about New Zealand 99 billion. And the really exciting part for us and our brand positioning and our product positioning is that environmentally friendly paints, and that's actually extended out to sort of be healthy and environmentally friendly paints, are expected to represent 28% of the market by 2027. And they are driving the majority of the growth in the market. And so, consumer behavior is going to be influenced strongly by health and environmental concerns, and that's internationally. Cool. So to go back to your question, Ben, growth strategy and use of funds. So our biggest challenges to date have been probably market awareness has been the biggest one, and really getting our brand out there. And so a big investment or use of the capital funds is going to be really gaining awareness in the New Zealand market. And we've already built a strong framework in our digital marketing space, where we're really dive deeply into the analytics and understand where our money's going, how it's returning, getting a positive return on investment, and how we can scale that up. And so we're going to be investing heavily in that and getting the brand in front of more people, and utilizing what's already working in the digital space and being able to scale that up. And we're also looking to increase traffic and also our conversion rate as well with the launch of our new site, constantly optimizing that and analyzing that to be able to refine it to be able to help with conversions.
Just touching on conversions, James, for a second, is there any information you could provide just around, some examples of how that conversion rate works currently? So, somebody hits the site, they order a test pot. What's the likelihood that they'll go through and actually convert into an order of, a couple of 10-litre pails of paint, for example?
Yeah, so on average, it's about 1 in 3. Which we feel is quite high, and the colour chart's about 1 in 5. And the great thing about the test pots is that people are putting in a financial commitment as well. So we generally sell like 4 test pots in a nice test pot box with a test pot brush for around $20, $25 shipped to their house. And then it gives them, they're invested financially, but it's very cost effective for them. They get the paint into their hands, and we find that once the paint's in their hands, it's very rare that somebody goes somewhere else once they get the chance to experience it. And I guess we could touch on a little bit of that, the way the lead gen works, but
I guess it's an interesting to think about, what levers you might have within digital space to improve that conversion rate as well.
Yeah.
Because, obviously if that's going to be a big focus, then there's obviously some thoughts that you've got around where you'd focus your attention.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the investment in the new e-commerce platform has given us the ability to create a framework which we can really analyze in depth and look at the whole customer journey. And because we are very customer centered, we understand that journey really well, and we're always analyzing it to see where we can make it better, and understanding the pain points of our clients. And that's why we've invested heavily in displaying color in such a way on our site, which allows people to really browse through color, get excited about it, visualize the color, put a full screen on their tablet or phone and hold it up against the wall, and then hopefully they can go straight from there to either ordering paint or getting some test pots into their hands. And our hope, even with our new site, we've increased our conversion rate from sort of 2.2 to 3.7, and we are pretty confident we'll be able to get that up to 5% over the next sort of 6 months.
And just, I guess, a follow-up question to that, and this is a question that's come through in advance as well, how important do you think accreditation or some kind of proof that's validated by an external body is to, I guess, give your customers confidence that the claims you're making with the product are accurate? Is that something that you've given much thought to at this stage?
Yeah, we think about it a lot, and some of the biggest challenges there have been that there hasn't been accreditations, or New Zealand accreditations, which have addressed the healthiness and the ingredients in paints. The focus of the majority of accreditations is around VOCs, which are volatile organic compounds, and the bigger issue with that is the way in which they're measured in New Zealand relates to outdoor air pollution, not health and indoor air quality, and it doesn't really look at the ingredients of the product in depth. So we do have Declare, which is with the Living Building Challenge, on our products, and that there is sort of the world's most stringent health-based building certification, and we're going to keep looking at certifying the products as long as we can find certifications that go above and beyond sort of some base level, and that's part of the reason why we haven't gone for what's available in New Zealand, is because other chemical paint brands already have it, and our products are very different, and so we don't want to be seen to be the same as them. So we will keep exploring it, and exploring that, and when certifications come up that are more aligned with what we're really pushing as a company. Alongside that, we do have the ingredient disclosure, which has been a big one for us, in a way to prove it in that way, and also the client testimonials and the brand trust that we've developed over 6 years with our Google reviews and things like that, help people understand the quality and the durability as well.
Okay, excellent. And I guess another question sort of relating to this broader growth strategy, and you've obviously got kind of two sides to this, and one side of it is exploring new markets and new channels, and I guess retouching on the point of retail distribution, how far kind of through that journey of consideration are you, and by that I mean, have you identified potential retailers that might be interesting to distribute through, or have you kind of got some thoughts around how you might approach that at this stage?
Yeah, for sure. We've done some tests with retailers. We've looked at, worked with Mitre 10 for a little bit, and we see there being a really good potential opportunity there. And we have been approached by some of the big retailers to look to roll out our products in some stores. So definitely it is like front and center of our mind as part of our strategy. The big part of that is ensuring that our processes are in place to be able to effectively distribute in that way, be able to keep up with it, manage it really well, and make sure that it's really successful for both ourselves and the retailer, and having the financial backing to be able to do it as well. And there's definitely something to be said about not being too split focus when there's still we see a lot of growth still in the e-commerce space. We've really only just tapped the surface of what's capable there, and it's working really well for us. So we're very excited to pursue that, with the being able to have this, additional funding in the company to really scale that up. And then it will also, allow us to be able to have those conversations with those retailers and be confident that we'll be able to service it really well. And also at brand awareness as well. We'll have a lot more awareness in the brand with everyday New Zealanders.
Yep. I think that, I can understand that. I think the other question that's sort of popping through a little bit relates, I guess, to more of the logistics and operations side of things. Part of the growth strategy involves, looking at your operations and trying to find ways to build additional efficiencies in there that will support further scale. Now, does that also kind of include the way you think about your supply chain? And maybe you could just talk to your supply chain a little bit more so that people on the call can just understand how that works, and I guess questions of whether there's good security there and whether you have access to what you need for the raw materials to actually produce the products to a high quality and at scale.
Yeah, definitely a very important question, especially in this COVID world currently. So we work very, very closely with our manufacturer in terms of sourcing raw materials, and we have a very solid supply chain where we have multiple raw material options that we can use if there was an issue, which we currently haven't had in the life of the company, if there was a supply issue there. And as we scale, part of that has been able to get great economies of scale when producing our products. So we already can compete pretty well on price with the big chemical guys, but being able to produce the product, being able to have greater buying power with our raw materials will allow us to get great economies of scale. And then that will also help with things like retail distribution or the large sort of trade side where we can still maintain a good margin and be able to service those areas. So that's exciting. We've really had that recently because we have been growing really well over the last 12 months. And so we're already seeing the benefits of being able to buy more in bulk and produce in larger amounts, and we're still shifting it very fast. So we haven't had any issues to date, and we're constantly looking at that because that's a very, very important part of the business, is ensuring that supply chain is robust. And the great thing is we're working with people who've been in the industry a long time who have contacts, and we have multiple sources of being able to source our raw materials.
Okay. Yep. Another question here from Paul, just asking, when you're thinking about those retail channels, have you considered going down the path of having a white label product that a retailer might be able to, apply their branding to and sell in store? Is that a strategy that is something you've thought about?
It's a strategy we've thought about, and we have been approached with that method before. But James and I have built Natural Paint Co up to be Natural Paint Co and like it to be our brand and a New Zealand household commodity. And so I think at this stage, we're really wanting to stick with it being Natural Paint Co and people understanding and knowing Natural Paint Co by name and knowing the quality, and that it's the same product every time, delivering on all of our unique value propositions that we offer.
Yeah.
So at this stage, we would be sticking with producing just with Natural Paint Co.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess a follow-up question to the previous conversation about the supply chain. I think this question relates to how you would ensure that your environmental and social standards are applied throughout your supply chain. As you grow, I guess one would expect that you're starting to need to deal with suppliers who can deliver in volume, and that presents challenges around being able to make sure that the way they're operating aligns with your own values. So what are your thoughts around how you'd address that as you scale up?
Well, all of our suppliers, or the 99% of our suppliers, have the capacity. Like we're ordering pretty small amounts, compared to what they could produce for us and supply us. So there wouldn't be any issues from that perspective in terms of supply of raw materials at larger volumes. But so we'll be able to stick with our suppliers and be able to continue to have the transparency, quality, health, and sort of sustainability aspects associated with those raw materials. However, definitely, it has always been something that we've wanted to hold really strong to, was not diluting our mission or our 3 pillars as we scaled, and as we grew. And we have that locked into our mission, locked into our constitution. So anybody who is a part of Natural Paint Co, their values need to align with the mission of the company, and so that can't be eroded over time as we scale. And that's something we've stuck to. We've absolutely stuck to our guns on throughout the 7 years. There's plenty of places where we could cut corners or use cheaper raw materials to create a cheaper product, or a less sustainable product. And an example of that is our titanium dioxide, which is what makes paint white and is what gives it coverage. So we use the highest levels in the industry, which means that you need less of our paint to do the same area as you would, with a resin or Dulux product. Now that's not a cheap raw material, and you could significantly, reduce the cost of the products by dropping that, but then you really drop the quality of the products. And so we want to create products which, are going to exceed people's expectations and outperform what's available on the market. And so we go above and beyond there to be able to have really high levels of that. There's also 2 main grades. There's a grade which is using recycled water to wash it, and that is more expensive than the grade which doesn't use recycled water, and that water then goes to polluting waterways in China. And we don't use the cheaper grade, we use the grade which is sustainable from source to us. And people don't know that we do that. We could probably not do it, but we as a company, we would never cut a corner there, because that's part of our mission, being able to create more sustainable products, and that's throughout the whole life of it.
And I think I can imagine that as you start to scale as well, you're going to need to be very careful about maintaining the product quality. So when you think about entering markets like Australia, or even longer term getting into some of the Asian markets, for example, how do you think you will approach that from a manufacturing standpoint? Does your IP give you the ability to work with and market manufacturers if you need to over time, or will you always need to be shipping product from New Zealand into those markets to make that work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So our IP has, we have the ability to be able to produce products offshore, and the way the IP is that we'd be able to partner with manufacturers internationally who'd be able to produce products to the same quality and standards as what we do in New Zealand. Or we could export if that was going to be the best. We have both options available to us, and we're confident with the level of understanding we have of our products and our IP that we could produce the same products internationally. And there's enough international suppliers to be able to supply the same raw materials.
Okay, excellent. just having a quick look through some of these questions that have come through here. An additional question that I think came in early has just been about the trade channel. I don't know if you can touch on that a little bit more, just around how you plan to go after that segment of the market more. You've obviously got Klaus in place now. You've got a big focus on growing your volume in that segment over the next few years. But perhaps you could just talk to some of those points for the benefit of people tuning in.
Yeah, definitely. I think we sort of mentioned it earlier that trade hasn't been a big focus for us up until recently, but we see massive potential there, and it is pretty untapped from our end. And we have products and a brand we know that we can hold our own in that space. And so the last year we've started making more inroads into that space, and that's with the likes of painters, builders, architects, as well as like property developers. And we also have the whole procurement side, which is government procurement, which is looking for procurement of goods which have quality and cost are met, but they also want to have a social good or environmental good aspect associated with the paint, with the products, and we're the only paint company that can offer that. So we are a certified social enterprise, and we really feel like our product is just as important offering in the trade space as it is in the retail and consumer space. And we've had really good success so far, and we've only really dipped our toes in the water there. But we've partnered with we're supplying a property developer in Christchurch. They're doing about 280 homes a year, and they're using us exclusively through all of their builds, and they find that it is a great selling point for their clients. So it helps them, be able to get their houses sold. So there's a value add there, but they also can feel really good about the houses that they're selling to their clients, that they're creating healthier homes. And we do have some really good. We do have a lot of value that we can add in the trade space. Part of it is the fact that our paints have no chemical smell. So people can paint a room and sleep in it that night. And that starts to become an attractive proposition when you're talking with retirement homes, when you're talking with hotels that refurbish quite regularly, when you're talking about hospitals and schools. We can minimize downtime between a room getting painted, or we can also, provide products which are free of harmful chemicals, which increases productivity in offices, helps increase concentration in schools where children aren't going to be reacting to chemical paints, from a room being painted a few days ago or a few weeks ago. So there is a lot of value that we can add in a lot of different industries there. And we're also in talks with some, large construction companies which can put our products in their tenders to tick the sort of environmental and social good box when they're tendering for contracts, which helps get it across the line as well, and gets them in there in those, procurement spaces. So yeah, there's a lot of scope here, and so far it has been really well received. And the barriers that were there 5-6 years ago in the trade space are far less now because of the changing consumer mindset and the larger push from the end consumer as well, wanting these sorts of products. So there is demand there, and we're able to present the solution for architects and builders and places like that who have been asked for products like ours.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Well, look, we've got about 5 minutes left in the webinar. We don't have any burning questions coming through at this stage. I've got a couple, again, which have come through in advance. So one in particular that we haven't touched on in much detail so far is just around the Australia focus. So when you're thinking about entering that Australian market as a bit of a test case, what are your thoughts on how you'd approach that, and what are your kind of key KPIs that you'd be looking for to gauge whether that trial is a success or otherwise?
That's a really great question. We see huge potential in the Australian market. Our first initial plan is to kind of leverage off what we're currently doing in the New Zealand market. So using our current operational facilities, expanding on these, making these more efficient, and then really utilising that into the Australian market. So utilising all of our digital marketing that we've already set up, what's working here, and we can test those, test our language, test imagery and all of that from our digital platform, and then just keep capitalising on that. And then I guess our measure will be revenue. And then once we hit a certain level that seems fair and reasonable, then we'll look at setting up a distribution facility in Australia itself. And then the position of that will be geographical, really, and location as to how many areas across Australia we can reach from that facility. And it will be run very similar to the way the headquarters here in Christchurch is. So from a distribution centre and then sent throughout Australia wide.
Yeah. And we can, like Grace said, we can start it by distributing from New Zealand really cost effectively, and low cost of entry without a huge outlay. We are confident that there is a massive scope there, but we also want to test and verify it. And that's part of the reason why we haven't really included it in our financial modelling. Because we already see the amount of scope that we have in New Zealand. But if Australia, when we're testing and verifying it, proves to be working really well, then we will scale quite rapidly into there as well.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like it's a bit of a case of getting in there with the existing strategy and e-commerce focus and gauging the feedback before committing a huge amount of cost and expense to setting up logistics on the ground. I guess a couple of final burning questions that are coming through. There's a couple on this topic, but you're really thinking about what's your kind of long-term aspirational goal and potential liquidity event or value realization for investors. Perhaps you could just touch on that as a way to sort of close this off over the next 5 minutes.
Yeah, sure. So we want to be an international brand. Our mission, is to be the most trusted natural coating supplier internationally. And so we see scope for Natural Paint Co. In a lot of markets overseas. Australia is sort of our first international market, but we see a lot of scope for our product in North America, where we would like, our plan is to, again, utilize all of the investment and analytics we have and the powerhouse of our e-commerce and digital marketing to be able to distribute there. We would set up distribution there and probably manufacturing as well, and shake up the industry over there. And we also see a lot of potential in Asia as well, but the method of distribution would probably be a little bit different there. It would look more partnering with a good distribution partner there, and rolling out our products, which will have its own challenges, and we'll source the right help to be able to do that well. But yeah, we see those being big plays for us over the next 2-3 years, and then during that time, looking to be acquired by another big company in the industry, or there might be an outside player or somebody in a different industry who wants to expand their portfolio of what they do. It might be another company in the healthcare or health and wellness sector that want to branch into this space. So yeah, and that's very common in the paint industry. It's notorious for acquisitions. So yeah, it's not unusual for it to happen.
Yeah, so there's a genuine commitment from the two of you to, obviously as you go through this process and start to achieve some of this growth, you'll need to adjust your strategy and your plans as you go. But certainly there is a desire there to create an event that gives investors a chance to realise some value in return.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. We're investors as well, really, aren't we?
Exactly right. All right, fantastic. Look, I think we are sort of at the end of our time here on the webinar. hopefully we've answered the majority of the questions that people had. And look, thank you very much for submitting questions, providing comments, either before this webinar through interaction with myself or James and Grace, and also through the webinar. So thank you very much for your time and engagement. Thank you, Grace and James, for your presentation. And look, we'll wrap it up here. As I said at the start, we will distribute a recording of this webinar, make it available on the offer page, and any questions that we didn't get to, we'll follow up with people individually to make sure that those are covered off. If anyone does have questions, as I said earlier, they can ask those again on the offer page or contact me directly. And yeah, we're always available and able to respond to those. But look, thanks everyone for joining again. Great to have so many people engaged and lots of questions coming through.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah. Thank you guys. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk with all of you and for you to be able to see the faces behind the brand. And yeah, and we're excited to have you on our journey. Yeah, it means a lot that people are willing to back us and get on board with this. And so yeah, it's going to be a exciting next few years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Thanks everyone. Cheers.
Cheers, Ben. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.